Hey yo guys, what's up and welcome back to Toe Tags Metal Reviews, and today we're getting our first impressions of the new releases from All That Remains, Pentagram, and Confess. So we got 3 releases today we're covering. All That Remains obviously is the big hitter here because they're the most popular one, I think anyway. Pentagram been around for a long time, and Confess been around for a bit, but I don't think they're very well known.
Not really. I mean, we have covered Confess before. We did take a look at their last record, which I did not remember anything. Like, I'm like, okay, yeah, we covered this. I kind of remember the album art, but nothing about the music. So it was kind of like experiencing them for the first time again with this new one.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that in a minute. I want to start with All That Remains because we reacted to a few of the singles.
Yep.
They were sounding pretty good.
We were excited.
We were like, yes, they're bringing back some old school sound. And I feel like the album delivered. It's called Anti-Fragile for starters, right? I feel like the album delivered. I had a really good time listening to it. It definitely had a lot of that old school All That Remains sound, but I think there's a lot of modern stuff in there as well.
Yeah, I think a big part of that is the inclusion of Jason Richardson in the band now.
Yeah, exactly. That helps a lot. With all the songs, there's 10 tracks on the album. It's 43 minutes long. There's one song in the album on my first listen that I just didn't like, and that was track number 3, Kerosene. It feels like a very poppy song. It's very, very poppy sounding.
The chorus.
Just maybe it's the chorus, but I kind of just felt like the whole thing was very. Poppy's the only word I can think of. And I'm not necessarily saying that pop metal or that type of style is bad, but I think there's a place for it, and I don't think it's here.
I guess because it doesn't really, in your eyes, fit with the rest of what the album has to offer.
I mean, there's some pretty catchy stuff on this album.
There is a lot.
Right? And catchiness, to me, I can associate that with pop as well, because pop is catchy music basically by definition. So this song, though, it just stood out a little more. It stood out. It felt like I'm surprised it's not a single, to be honest, because it felt like a really try-hard radio song.
It could be.
Or maybe it is. You're saying?
Well, no, I'm just thinking like, a lot of bands, I haven't really noticed, but like a lot of bands will drop another single like on album release day.
Yeah.
So without us even knowing right now, that could be the album release single.
It's possible.
I don't think either of us would be really surprised.
A couple of songs that we reacted to, like Divine and No Tomorrow, both also super catchy, but good songs.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like they were overly poppy or anything like that. Just they have those hooks that just grab you, right? Another song that I really liked was number 7, Poison It. This song gave me immediate flashbacks of The Weak-Willed from Fall of Ideals, which is a song that I've always loved from this band, and they're kind of touching on that same kind of vibe there. Really cool stuff. I liked Cut Out Their Tongues was cool. There's a bit of gentiness in there. I liked the title track, which you messaged. I'm sure you're gonna talk about it because you messaged me saying how much you liked it. There's a death growl in there. There's a couple songs with death growls, but this one's like more prominent, more just kind of brutal, right there. It almost felt like a 7 or 8 minute long song to me.
With how much content is in there.
How much content's in there. It's 4.5 minutes, but it felt a lot more full body, and that's pretty cool.
Speaking of length, I think this album hits a really good sweet spot. It's 10 tracks and it's about like 45-ish minutes or so, which is like
43. But
43.
Yeah, right there. That's
in
kind of
average length.
Money spot. Yeah, that's good length for an album. Good amount of songs. You got some songs that are a little bit on the longer side, some songs are a little bit on the shorter side, but overall they average pretty nicely. One more thing before I pass the floor to you for Anti-Fragile is I liked some of the subtle things they added in, like some of the piano and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
On songs like, for example, Blood and Stone, which is the last song of the album, they have, kind of a different style of clean vocals they're doing, and they have just beautiful piano
with some like acoustic guitar backing that.
Yeah,
and
it's
that
just
bookends the song.
Very beautiful sounding stuff. So I like all those little things they put in there. There's lots of different ideas and stuff they're sprinkling around, but overall just solid album. It sounds fresh, but it also has that old school vibe, that old school kind of meat and potatoes that I was looking for.
Yeah, there aren't many metalcore bands these days that are really harkening back to that old school sound. This is definitely one of them. We've seen a few bands do that within the last few years, but like I said, not many. So it's nice to hear that from on the more melodic side, and it has the spirit. riffs, aggression, melodies, vocal style. It just has that. So I guess to kind of just reflect what you were saying, Kerosene for me, everything that wasn't the chorus I liked in that song. But the chorus just felt out of place to me. But like musically, like before chorus started, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a good one. And I hear this chorus, I'm like, I don't know. But I mean, other than that, I still enjoyed all the singles that we reacted to.
Yeah.
And I was super duper hyped for this album, and I'm glad that it delivered. I agree. Divine, I still liked it. It kind of caught me by surprise because it's the start of the record, and I'm like, whoa, it just starts with this explosion.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, that's a good way to start.
Yeah.
And
Waste no time.
Exactly. I mentioned when we checked out Let You Go, like when we reacted to that the vocals sounded like David Draymond.
I think the whole song sounds like Disturbed, to be honest.
Yeah, honestly,
sounds like a
general,
Disturbed song.
Kind of does. But that kind of David Draymond sounding vocal does come out again in the Piper, and that song musically is just wild. Like all the riffs are great, the drumming very tight, loved it. And there's the scream that comes out at the end of each chorus, super duper sick. Loved that as well. The title track blew me away. Like, the riffs are sick, the syncopated grooves, the vocals, the solos, everything just, whoa, like, just blew me away. It felt like I was listening to Trivium. Like, I'm like, wow. Which for me is a compliment.
Yeah.
You know, if it's giving me a vibe from another one of my favorite bands, then like, yeah, that's huge. But I was like, I'm listening to that song just like, this is wild.
Nice.
Loving it. Yeah, overall, I quite enjoyed it. I guess I'll also mention Cut Their Tongues Out. I like that one as well, especially because it started as this slower beater track and then picks up and heats up as it goes.
Yep.
And I like that. I think this album has a lot of really cool, creative decisions made. It feels like a very carefully crafted record.
Cool. So let's move along. Lightning in a Bottle by Pentagram. So I'm going to be honest, I don't know if I've ever listened to Pentagram before. I mean, I know Pentagram exists. I've known about them for a long time, but when I put it on, it wasn't what I was expecting. You know, these guys are said to be one of the kind of pioneers of doom metal, or they call them one of the big four of doom metal. So I was expecting something a little bit more brooding, a little bit more deep, and a little bit more kind of moody. And what I felt like I got was something more psychedelic, something more kind of in the stoner rock type of genre, which I guess they do go hand in hand. If you think about bands like Black Sabbath, who also are credited to kind of pioneering doom metal, they also were bred out of the full psychedelic rock and stoner rock kind of era. So they kind of go hand in hand in that aspect. So I guess my assumptions were off, but it still makes sense what I got. Anyways, I felt like this was a pretty cool album. It's pretty basic. It's surface level stuff. It's nothing too profound or anything like that, but it's still an enjoyable listen. So I really liked the song. The album opens with a song called Live Again, or Live Again. And it just gave me that really old school psychedelic rock sound. Would I call it metal? I guess you're on a bridge now. It's, you know, kind of splitting hairs basically.
Yeah, it gets hard to really kind of pin something when it lends itself to different places.
Exactly, especially when you get old school, because it's a lot tamer back then. Yeah. And for that time, if you're talking back in the 70s,
it was the heaviest thing.
It was heavy stuff, right? So it's you know, does the genre change because times have changed? It's hard to say. Either way, I thought the opening track was pretty interesting. The next track that I liked was track number 3, I Spoke to Death. This really gave me the Black Sabbath vibes.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I think it's very easy to compare this band to Black Sabbath, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, Black Sabbath, again, legends in their own right, and everybody knows that. The song that I think is the best song in this album gave me mixed feelings still, and that's Lady Heroin, because it kicks off with a really awesome drum groove. I really liked how it was going. And then it kind of just turns into what I would describe as a Pink Floyd song. Just pure stoner metal. Just like, I feel like the best way to enjoy an album like this would be if you were smoking some ganja. That's it. Honestly, I feel like that's what it's made for. That's the audience it's made for. I'm not saying you should do that or condoning it, but I feel like that's kind of what the target audience is here. And that's fine. There's a lot of people out there that like that kind of stuff. But overall, It's 11 tracks, 41 minutes. It is what it is. If you're into that kind of stuff, I think you'll really, really dig it. If you're not, then you probably won't. That's pretty much, it's cut and dry.
Kind of depends on some of the stuff that you're into, because I feel like it's a bit adjacent to a few different sounds. So there's kind of a few audiences that might be able to enjoy this.
Yeah.
But, you know, obviously I can parrot a lot of the stuff that Vile said. You know, Sabbath is one of the biggest comparisons. Deep Purple, I also got some of that from this, which makes a lot of sense. I agree on I Spoke to Death. I like the mean brooding groove that it has. The drum fills in the chorus are pretty cool. I like that one. I also really like Lady Heroin as well. What I didn't understand is that it kind of starts with, you know, it's a bit more active at the start, then it gets quiet and eventually ramps up. I think it would have been better if it kind of started quiet and then went up from there. Because it feels weird to kind of start, oh, this is the song. Oh, this is not the song. Oh, they're doing this for a while.
Yeah.
Now we're back.
Yeah.
It just kind of feels weird organizationally to do that. I still like the song. Probably one of the most notable songs for me on the record. I liked it, but I would have probably reorganized it a little bit that way. But this might sound weird, but the vocals reminded me of Bloody Hammers' vocals. I don't know if you got that impression at all, or
I didn't make the connection, but I get it, yeah.
But as the album kind of went, I don't want to say I was getting tired of it, but it was kind of waning on me a little bit, because later on in the album I got to the point where I'm like, okay, there's not really much else. It's just kind of like similar stuff. So by the end I'm like, But there is some cool stuff in there, some cool tracks, some cool grooves, straightforward old school heavy metal or stoner metal, however you want to see it. Yeah, not bad.
All right, Destination Addiction by Confess. Iranian metal, very unique. Half the members are Iranian, half of them are from Norway, I believe, Norwegian, which is interesting. Another interesting fact about this album is George Colias from Nile is drumming on this album, which is pretty cool. The interesting thing on top of that is that he doesn't drum like he drums in Nile. It's not just complete balls to the walls, like insane technical drumming. It's pretty laid back for his style.
I mean, it shows a lot of versatility in his playing.
There's a lot of versatility in his playing, and there's a lot of versatility in the sound of the album because of it.
Yeah. There is a lot of the crazy stuff from him, like that is definitely there, a lot of the extreme stuff, but there's a lot more than just that. So it just shows how good of a player that he is.
Exactly. So with that out of the way, I was like, yeah, we've done this band before on the channel. I don't think we reviewed them. We just did first impression.
It was just the first impressions. The album was called Revenge at All Costs. And like I said earlier in this video, I don't remember anything. So it's like kind of going for the first time again with this band. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Just go fresh again. Why not?
Yeah, well, I went back and listened to a couple of the tracks off that album just to get a refresher of what they sounded like. And I was like, oh yeah, these guys are like pretty good, but like not standout great. So I was hoping that I would listen to this album and hear stuff that was standout great. And there's some spots where I was like, you know, this has some meat and potatoes. This has some legs. I can really get behind this. Tracks like Slaughterhouse, the second track, I thought this was a great track. I liked how it ended with like a beat down style breakdown. And it even had some like what sounded to me like scratching. Like DJ scratching.
I made the exact same note and I looked into it and that is what it is. Like I remember looking at the Bandcamp page for this site and one of the two guys is samples and scratching and DJ. Cool. So like that is there and you hear that throughout the album. It's not just that song.
Exactly. And that's what my next point was going to be. Then the next song that I really liked was Dark on Both Sides, which has another beat down style breakdown with more scratching on it. And yeah, it's throughout the album, but I just found it funny that the first two songs I gravitated towards both had a similar type of vibe to them. But that's fine. Not like every song has it. Those are just the two that I kind of was like, those are the good ones. The last song in this album I also think was really good. Breathe In, Breathe Out. I really love the grooves on it, just gnarly grooves. It also has a bit of clean singing on it, which I thought was pretty cool. It's rough, but it's clean nonetheless, right? It's not like super pure clean, but it's clean. And I thought that was a nice switch up. Have it on the last song was kind of nice. I was a little confused why the song Final Lap wasn't the last song, because it just felt like a fitting title for a last song, maybe?
I guess so.
I don't know, it is what it is, whatever. But overall, I thought this was a pretty solid album. I got a lot of Soulfly vibes listening to this. I really felt like it had that kind of sound to it. Maybe a bit of like Decapitated or something on there. if I'm gonna compare, right? One thing that I don't want to say I don't like it, but I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity. Being one of the only, if not the only, metal bands from Iran, I feel like they miss an opportunity to kind of get some cultural sounds in there and make it sound like that. You know, you hear a lot of bands from different places, and you can tell a lot of times that they're from a foreign country because they include instruments or something like that. But
case in point, you know, Bloodywood is a really good example of that.
Exactly. Bloodywood's a good example of that. They'll have the Indian sounds in there and that cultural kind of vibe to marry with the metal stuff, and, you know, it gives them a unique sound. The problem is, I don't know if Iran has that. I don't know if they have, like, the types of instruments or the type of culture where they can ingrain it with their metal. I'm sure there is too, but you never know. There's I don't know. I felt like I just wish there was a little bit more, because it would have made this band sound a little bit more unique, right? Without that, they just sound like another metal band, right? And their personality or their history or whatever is kind of washed away, unless you really pay attention to the lyrics. Because the lyrics, from what I understand, are very like anti-government and anti-establishment.
Well, if I recall correctly, I think one, if not both of the guys, did literally face like prison time for kind of doing that.
And they escaped and ran.
And this album, and I, you know, when I did a bit of reading on it on the Bandcamp, was saying that this basically is about a lot of the mental struggles that they faced throughout all of that. A lot of, like, it's a very personal album that way, that they took everything inside and crafted it into this record. Now, it caught me by surprise. I wasn't expecting to like this as much as I did. Not that I was expecting to not like it, but I was just surprised, like, wow, this is really good. And I think there is a lot of personality to this album, and the influences I'm hearing, it's like, wow, this sounds like this crossed with that. That's kind of weird. What are this and that? The two names I wrote down were Pantera and Slipknot.
Wow.
Early on,
and I said Soulfly and Decapitated.
That's a mix for sure. So early on, I noted that the vocals kind of reminded me of Phil. It's just, it kind of, and so, you know, first track or two kind of made me think this is kind of like a more technical Pantera almost, which is really, really cool. But then there was a point, specifically Expedition, where I'm like, wow, this is starting to sound like Slipknot. Stuff with the structure, with the riffs, even some of the guitar sound kind of lent itself to there, but more specifically, it was reminding me of something that could have been on All Hope Is Gone. Weird, that specifically is what it was reminding me of, but the vocals kind of almost sounded like All Hope Is Gone Corey. Like, the fact that it's reminding me of that is really, really cool. And it wasn't, it was maybe another song here and there, but like, it wasn't like the whole record was like that. It had a good amount of variety, and I was surprised. Dark on Both Sides, the riff that's got the pinch harmonics, awesome. That caught my ear every single time. I'm like, dude, this is some Death Clock shit. That's the kind of thing you'd hear in Death Clock. And even the vocals in that one reminded me a little bit of Nathan Explosion. Wow. Just a bit. And maybe it's just because I had Death Clock on the mind when I was hearing that riff,
perhaps.
But it totally sounds like a Death Clock riff.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like there are a multitude of songs that have really cool things that stand out. You know, like Final Lap is another one where it's like, wow, it's got this slow riff that it keeps coming back to. Thought that was totally awesome. So overall, like, it's got such a really cool mix of stuff, and I was quite surprised with how much I enjoyed it.
Nice. So yeah, that's 3 pretty solid releases today, I would say. But I think the winner here, and the one we're going to review, is Anti-Fragile. Why all that remains, because we're hyped with the singles. We both liked it on our first impressions, so we're going to give it an entire week and spin it as much as we possibly can. And we'll be back next week to give you guys our full and final review of the album, so be sure to check back then. For now, leave your thoughts down below and let us know what you think of these 3 new releases or anything else you want to sound off. Do it down below. Subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. I'm Vile Self.
I'm TV Fish.
We'll see you guys on the next one.